Wheel of randomness, turn, turn, turn. Tell us the 15 minutes that we shall learn. Welcome to Randomly 15 Minutes, where we give you a topic in 15 minutes or less, or your podcast is free. I'm your writer, Sam Rossi, and shortly Megan Nikki will be reading a script written by me on a topic she may or may not know about. This shall be fun.
Hey everyone, it's Megan Nikki, your hostess for Randomly 15 Minutes, and today Sam has a script for us on Renaissance art. Renaissance art. So today we will be discussing Renaissance art in Italy, and she says we gotta break it up somehow. LOL. So here we go. Buckle up. Renaissance art is the painting, sculpture, and decorative arts of the period of European history known as the Renaissance, which emerged as a distinct style in Italy in about 1400 AD. In parallel with developments which occurred in philosophy, literature, music, science, and technology, Renaissance art took as its foundation the art of classical antiquity, perceived as the noblest of ancient traditions, but transformed that tradition by absorbing recent developments in the art of Northern Europe and by applying contemporary scientific knowledge. For art historians, Renaissance art marks the transition of Europe from the medieval period to the early modern age. The body of art, including painting, sculpture, architecture, music, and literature, identified as Renaissance art, was primarily produced during the 14th, 15th, and 16th centuries in Europe under the combined influences of an increased awareness of nature, a revival of classical learning, and a more individualistic view of man. Scholars no longer believe that the Renaissance marked an abrupt break with the medieval values, as is suggested by the French word Renaissance. I don't know why I did that, but it sounds cool. Renaissance, literally meaning rebirth. In many parts of Europe, early Renaissance art was created in parallel with late medieval art. Many influences on the development of Renaissance men and women in the early 15th century have been credited with the emergence of Renaissance art. A revived interest in the classics brought about the first archaeological study of Roman remains by the architect Brunelleschi and sculptor Donatello. The revival of a style of architecture based on classical precedents inspired a corresponding classicism in painting and sculpture, which manifested itself as early as the 1420s in the paintings of Masaccio and Uccello. The improvement of oil paint and developments in oil painting technique by Belgian artists such as Robert Campen, John van Eyck, Roger van der Weyden, and Hugo van der Goes led to its adoption in Italy from about 1475 and had ultimately lasting effects on painting practices worldwide. The serendipitous presence within the region of Florence in the early 15th century of certain individuals of artistic genius, most notably Masaccio, Brunelleschi, Ghiberti, Piero della Francesca, Donatello, and Michelangelo formed an ethos out of which sprang the great masters of the High Renaissance, as well as supporting and encouraging many lesser artists to achieve work of extraordinary quality. In Italy, in the late 13th and early 14th centuries, the sculpture of Nicola Pisano and his son Giovanni Pisano, working at Pisa, Siena, and Pistoia, shows markedly classicism. I can't even speak. Classicizing tendencies, probably influenced by the familiarity of these artists with ancient Roman sarcophagi. Their masterpieces are the pulpits of the Baptistery and Cathedral of Pisa. Contemporary with Giovanni Pisano, the Florentine painter Giotto developed a manner of figurative painting that was unprecedentedly naturalistic, three-dimensional, lifelike, and classics. Oh my gosh, I hate this word. Classicist. When compared with that of his contemporaries and teacher Cimabue. That's what I'm going to call him. Giotto, whose greatest work is the cycle of the life of Christ at the Arena Chapel in Padua, was seen by the 16th century biographer Giorgio Vasari as rescuing and restoring art from the crude traditional Byzantine style, prevalent in late 13th century Italy. Although both the Pisanos and Giotto had students and followers, the first truly Renaissance artists were not to emerge in Florence until 1401, with the competition to sculpt a set of bronze doors of the baptistry of Florence Cathedral, which drew entries from 7 young sculptors, including Brunelleschi, Donatello, and the winner, Lorenzo Ghiberti. Brunelleschi, most famous as the architect of the Dome of Florence Cathedral and the Church of San Lorenzo, created a number of sculptural works, including a life-size crucifix in Santa Maria Novella, renowned for its naturalism. His studies of perspective are thought to have influenced the painter Masaccio. Donatello became renowned as the greatest sculptor of the early Renaissance, his masterpieces being his humanist and unusually erotic statue of David, one of the icons of the Florentine Republic, and his great monument to Gattamelata, the first large equestrian bronze to be created since Roman times. The universal genius, Leonardo da Vinci, further perfected the aspects of pictorial art, lighting, linear and atmospheric perspective, anatomy, foreshortening, and characterization that had preoccupied artists of the early Renaissance in a lifetime of studying and meticulously recording his observations of the natural world. His adoption of oil paint as his primary media meant that he could depict light and its effects on the landscape and objects more naturally and with greater dramatic effect than had ever been done before, as demonstrated in the Mona Lisa, 1503 to 1506. His dissection of cadavers carried forward the understanding of skeletal and muscular anatomy, as seen in the unfinished St. Jerome in the Wilderness, circa 1480. His depiction of human emotion in The Last Supper, completed 1495 to 1498, set the benchmark for religious painting. The art of Leonardo's younger contemporary, Michelangelo, took a very different direction. Michelangelo, in neither his painting nor his sculpture, demonstrates any interest in the observation of any natural object except the human body. He perfected his technique in depicting it while in his early 20s by the creation of the enormous marble statue of David and the group Pieta in the St. Peter's Basilica, Rome. He then set about an exploration of the expressive possibilities of the human anatomy. His commission by Pope Julius II to paint the Sistine Chapel ceiling resulted in the supreme masterpiece of figurative composition, which was to have profound effect on every subsequent generation of European artists. His later work, The Last Judgment, painted on the altar wall of the Sistine Chapel between 1534 and 1541, shows a Mannerist, also called late Renaissance style, with generally elongated bodies which took over from the high Renaissance style between 1520 and 1530. Standing alongside Leonardo and Michelangelo as the third great painter of the high Renaissance was a younger Raphael, who in a short lifespan painted a great number of lifelike and engaging portraits, including those of Pope Julius II and his successor Pope Leo X, and numerous portrayals of the Madonna and Christ Child, including the Sistine Madonna. His death in 1520 at age 37 is considered by many art historians to be the end of the High Renaissance period, although some individual artists continued working in the High Renaissance style for many years thereafter. In northern Italy, the High Renaissance is represented primarily by members of the Venetian school, especially by the latter works of Giovanni Bellini, especially religious paintings, which include several large altarpieces of a type known as sacred conversation, which show a group of saints around the enthroned Madonna. His contemporary, Giorgione, who died at about the age of 32 in 1510, left a small number of enigmatic works, including The Tempest, the subject of which has remained a matter of speculation. The earliest works of Titian date from the era of the High Renaissance, including the massive altarpiece The Assumption of the Virgin, which combines human action and drama with spectacular color and atmosphere. Titian continued painting, or Titian, I don't know how to say it, continued painting in a generally high Renaissance style until near the end of his career in the 1570s, although he increasingly used color and light overline to define his figures. And Donatello lived circa 1386 to 1466. Leonardo da Vinci was living from 1452 to 1519. Michelangelo was 1475 to 1564, and Raphael was 1483 to 1520. That's now that makes sense. Donatello, Michelangelo, Raphael.
Yeah. When I was doing Italy, I'm like, okay, I know four artists off the top of my head. We're going to do
God.
those four artists.
No, it's interesting because I didn't really know like the timelines of them, and and even like just their style and stuff was all unique and such. And it is interesting like how Renaissance art is a certain type of style. Like
It is.
you can recognize it, like especially if someone's like, oh, this was during the Renaissance period. Okay, I could point that out then.
Yeah, it's a well-known time period in art.
Mm-hmm. But I'm no art buff or art historian or anything, so I appreciate art, but I I'm someone who I admit when I look at a painting, I would probably just be like, oh, that's great. I don't really recognize who painted it or anything. I mean, maybe there would be certain ones where I could be like, okay, I could see where that's a certain painter or something, but I'm just someone who goes to a museum and I'm like, yeah, okay, cool.
That's cool to
I
look at. That's nice.
Yeah, I will say, we used to go on field trips, to Munson Williams. And
Yeah.
for people who, it's a local, art place in Utica, New York. And, we would go there and I always hated when they would be like, and what else do you see in this picture? Like, what do you feel from it? And it's like, I don't think, like, the whole book stuff, like English teachers, why do you think they have this certain character? I don't know. Maybe because they just wanted to paint the sky blue. I don't know. Like,
Because blue's the color of the sky.
right, like,
Yes.
but what else were they thinking? Like, so,
That it looked good enough to paint?
yeah. or like the sculptures and that. I appreciate their types of sculptures versus, I'm sorry, the abstract stuff. I'm just like, I just don't get into that stuff. I'm like, here is a block.
Certain abstract things make sense, like
Mm-hmm.
cubism,
Mm.
or I'm remembering making these plaster things where we mashed it around a bag, got the bag off, and proceeded to drill holes through it to make it look like
Mm.
coral. I don't
Well, that's
remember
cool.
why,
Yeah.
but I'm remembering this while we were talking about abstract a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I mean, some of it can be cool, but I admit, again, for people listening, I just don't get art sometimes where I'm like, especially like the splatter of the painting and people will pay thousands of dollars for it. And yeah, I'm that person that's like, I wouldn't, I wouldn't pay for it, but
No, no, no. I have a plan for the picture I want to make you. It's gonna be pretty with pinks.
guys, as of this recording, we'll see.
I haven't started any painting yet, but I have ideas, and that's something that's a step forward for me.
See? So now by the time this episode comes out and that, it'll be a reminder or a goal of like, oh, I gotta work on that painting.
Yeah. You're the second person who has a painting that's in my head.
Oh, I feel special.
You should be.
I do. But I don't got nothing else on these guys, just cool
They're the
stuff.
Ninja Turtles.
Yes. That too.
I'm Sam Rossi.
I'm Megan Kladnicki.
Later, y'all.
Ciao.